Gary, good morning. And of course, welcome to the Potential is Human podcast. I've begun to understand that you're pretty much the king of doing a morning the right way. How did your day start today, and where are you in the world?
Ah, Brother Ryan, thank you so much for inviting me into this beautiful space, this digital space. My morning probably was so profound um, in the sense that there was the most beautiful sunrise happening this morning. I'm out in the Helderberg section of Cape Town, of the Western Cape, and the
Mm.
sunrise was so bright red. And I was walking through a fynbos garden, and all the proteas and these flowers that were in full bloom, surprisingly, because it's winter. Um, it's just,
Yeah.
like when you watch, you go from watching like a normal TV or a normal movie, and then someone switches it over to like an ultra HD Blu-ray movie, and it almost looks fake. It's like, wow, this almost
Yes,
like
I
looks
know.
computer generated, like humans don't look this HD. It's kind of the experience I
Mm.
experienced this morning. So that's how my morning went, and it was quickly followed from a walk into. I'm getting deep into primal movements at the moment. Um, so I
Hmm.
did a primal movement session, activating this divine vessel, my body, to get ready for the show.
Yeah. What a way to start. And I just love how you honor yourself in the mornings and you share that with others. It's in your content, you keep emphasizing the importance of that. But let's dive into the fact that life didn't necessarily always look this way for Gary. From what I've got to know, and I'm hoping you will share more here today, is that there was a time when
Mm.
you were really chasing something in your life. Success looked different to you. It led you down a path of, I want to use the word destruction, and then you turned it all around. So, what did it look like when Gary was younger, and what was the
Mm.
pursuit about initially?
Mm. So it was very strategic the way I just explained my morning in order to explain my life, because I base my life now on the premise that life is merely how you see it. We can be looking at the same thing, you and I, but we can be
Mm,
looking at it in very different dynamics or different ways or different perspectives. So for someone that could have been walking through the garden that I was walking through this morning, they could have maybe not even taken note of the sunrise or the flowers, right? Because of stress or overwhelm
yeah.
because of what's going on in their life. So the first part of my life was very much like that. I went to private schooling. I have an amazing family, and I got caught in the trap of thinking that my life is the success of my life. The success, in inverted commas for the listeners, of my life was
Yeah.
based on the success that I came to believe was successful. Now, what I mean by that is,
Mm,
because I grew up in such a fortunate background and I had a very loving family, I believed my success was what the people around me that I looked up to thought success was. And pretty much to sum that up, that is, my dad's an amazing business person. My mom's an amazing mother that nurtured me. But I geared myself more towards that entrepreneurial spirit that my dad was in. He was in retail, so it was like a work hard 7 days a week. You work hard in retail and you get successful. And it's the old mentality as well. You show up at work at 6 a.m., you leave at
mm,
8 p.m., and cool, I'm all for that. It's not, but what I didn't realize in the moment was that didn't work for me. But because I didn't realize that in the moment, and I was just modeling who I am based on my circumstances and environments, what happened was I quickly got sucked into, the general, well, if I have to be that person, I need to study finance and investments, and I have to go and do the general degree at Stellenbosch University and all of that. And I don't regret it. It's amazing.
yeah.
I've met amazing people and I learned a lot. But I could never understand why I
Mm,
wasn't experiencing an internal happiness that I was seeking. Now, it's not to say that the people I looked up to were experiencing that internal happiness. I just believed that they were. And I had this massive fairy tale in my mind of like what I want to feel, like, because we experience those emotions by watching movies and watching things and the media and all that, and watch a motivational video, and this is how you're supposed to be. And the funny thing is, I wasn't experiencing it. I was like, and so there was this gap between me doing what I thought was right versus not feeling that rightness, for lack of a better term. And it was in that gap that the heaviness was felt. And that heaviness that I felt
Mm.
dragged me towards short term fixes, short term things that allowed me to release and let go into that space of, like when you breathe out, like, that's joy, not like the
Mm.
laughing all the time, like.
Mm.
And what I thought was, of course, booze and alcohol and drugs and a whole bunch of other things, lines of cocaine and this and that. And I got trapped into that world because it was the only thing that took me out of the physical world. I drank till I blacked out. I drank till I threw up. I did drugs until I couldn't remember my name. And I did everything like that. And it was my reprieve.
Mm.
I thought I was
Mm.
just a happy-go-lucky party animal, like enjoying the party, like, hey man, I'm 21. Hey man, I'm 20. Like, this is what we do. But
Yeah.
it's when I learned that we don't get to model our lives on other people. We get to model our lives on what we feel is right. Um,
Mm.
so I landed up in rehab when I realized that this unhappiness cannot be solved by everything that I'm doing. I didn't realize it was drugs right then. Of course, drugs took me there, but I was like, everything I'm doing
Mm.
in life, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I've cool. I've got the money. I've got the car. I've got the girls. I've got all this outward success. People looked at me. You're so successful. You're so great. You're amazing with people. Like, how can you leave as the GM of this tech company? Like, how can you leave everything? And it's like, well, because it's not bringing me fulfillment. And I
Yeah.
had 3 certain periods during that period that I was very suicidal. One where I was actually standing on the edge of a balcony, ready to go. And many times,
Mm.
another period where I was driving on the N1, sorry, a freeway in South Africa for any foreigners. And I intentionally veered my car um, towards the middle barrier, which is a concrete barrier. And in the moment of madness or clarity, in that last second, I pulled my car back towards into the middle. And it was periods like this that I very much knew that I wasn't following a path that I wanted to follow. So I dragged myself off to rehab, and that's where I allowed myself. I honor rehab and I honor the 12 steps, but it was me that I honor the most. You say I start every morning by
Mm.
honoring myself. It's because I think that's all we have. If we can honor ourselves first and foremost and prioritize ourselves, and we can quieten down enough to hear what we actually want, then we can make an informed decision based on who we are as human beings. And that's what I did. So the first thing I did was I left my top corporate job. I stopped everything. I left the girlfriend, I left the city that I was living in, and I just gave myself space. I moved back to Cape Town, and I gave myself space to understand who the fuck I was. Um,
Mm.
and that was the massive turning point, or should I say, turning era in my life, because there wasn't a specific point. There
Mm.
were many different points that combusted into a boom, rock bottom of sorts. But the
Mm.
rock bottom, I didn't see it as
Yeah.
rock bottom. I saw it as like, it was like hitting a peak. Like if you're a cyclist and you're going on this massive long cycle, or if you've ridden the Cape Town cycle tour, like when you get to the top of Chapman's Peak, you're stuffed. You're stuffed, like, but you're at the pinnacle, you know? Like you've
Mm.
done the hard
Mm.
yards. And then it's like it's free flow. Come on, baby. It's the last stretch. Let's go. Let's go. you start getting this energy you never knew existed. And it's like, and then that's when
Yeah.
everything starts coming together. That's when you start getting to appreciate the crowds on the side of the road. That's when you get to start appreciating like all this incredible divine hard work that you put into life, because that's what I see it as. I
Mm.
worked hard doing drugs so that I could get to the place I'm at right now.
It's insane to hear how, for me at least, how common this is for society, right? And it's someone else listening into your story. Theirs might be dressed a bit differently and look differently and unique to their circumstances. But at some point, the external pursuit and seeking for that happiness has to culminate in a realization that it doesn't exist outside of you. And I guess it's that point when we see that there must be another way. And then we go on that journey towards, like you say, discovery of self and getting clear around like, who is Gary and who am I as Ryan? Who do I choose to be? What do I represent in this lifetime? How am I committed to showing up? But what we both know, and I would love you to tell us a bit more about your experience, like obviously going to rehab, starting to do the work. It's not just a case of like, cool, I see I need to change the way I'm living and who I'm being. So I let go of the girlfriend, I let go of the old ways, and bang, the new version of me is here in a few days. Like, it's a process, right? And it's a constant commitment. I would say the refinement even still happens in our lives now, of going deeper and deeper into the understanding of who am I. And
Yeah.
for you, what was that like? Because I can almost guarantee, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you didn't just come out of rehab and like life was glorious after that.
So I'm gonna start off this explanation by something. I'm actually reading a narration of the Bhagavad Gita. So for anyone that doesn't know what the Bhagavad
Mm-hmm.
Gita is, the Bhagavad Gita is an ancient yogic script. It's one of the most ancient scripts out there. It's older than the Bible, etc. And I read something last night that was so profound. It knocked me, even though I'm so in the process of discovering who I am and very much understanding who I am right now at this point, 8 years into coaching and 8 years into, not coaching, 8 years into personal development, 8 years into honoring myself. I read this last night and I'm going to pull it up. And I want everyone to like listen very carefully. These are not my words. These are the words of Ram Dass, who is writing an explanation of the Bhagavad Gita, and it says, so as we begin to adopt the Gita's perspective as our own, we'll notice that our focus starts to change. Instead of always preoccupying ourselves with trying to get what we think we want or need, we'll start to quiet. We'll start to listen. We'll wait for that inner prompting. We'll try to hear rather than decide what it is we should do next. And that explanation right there, for me, sums up the divine path to being who you are at your core and not doing what you think needs to be done. And that's why I was very specific. I didn't know this at the time. Of course, hindsight is perfect sight. And at that time, I just had the feeling that I had to let go of everything because I was doing everything in life and I wasn't being in touch with who I was. So thank goodness for that surge of energetic shift. And when I let go, it's what the Gita explains, right? When I let go, I created space in my life to, some people say, manifest things into your life. Some people say attract things
Mm.
into your life. I just say I created enough space to be able to be me, right? It's the same thing when you have children. If you lock a child in their room, they're going to go nuts, right? If you take a child outdoors to a playground, they're going to just naturally be themselves. They're going to run in zigzags and they're going to go up and down and they're going to slide on the slide. And we are essentially just children on this path of life. Yet we try and fix ourselves into these boxes within boxes within boxes within boxes. And what I mean by boxes is it very much is a particular box. Because if you think about it, we get into this box that's on wheels, right? We drive to the box that has weights in it, right? And we train in this box, and then afterwards we go sit in a hot box, which is called a sauna, and then we get into a shower, which is another box, and then we get back into our box on wheels, and we get to an office, which is a box, right, with fake lighting, and we sit in a box shape. We close off our divine body system, and then we get back into the car after 8 hours into the box, back to our box at home, just to have a conversation with our wife or our husband or our kids, and then not understand why we are frustrated. And I say, well, try and box a natural being in, try and box a child in, and see how the frustration boils up. And I just want everyone, there's nothing wrong with the job, there's nothing wrong with corporate, there's nothing wrong with everything. But can everyone just allow themselves space, enough space to figure out who they actually are? Far removed from what your mom or your dad thinks you need, or what society thinks you need. I think there's close to 8 billion people in this world now, and I promise there's one fact of life, that there's 8 billion different versions of people. They may not all be out there as the different version they are. They may all be emulating other people. But I'm going to tell you that it's not the easier path, but it is the most joyful path. Being able to cut the ties or the pressure or the stress of trying to be like someone else. And that goes with everything. That goes with running a relationship, being a certain type of parent, with being a certain type of citizen, that's following a certain diet, that's like doing a certain morning routine, that even comes down into meditation, you know. People are like, well, I have to meditate this way. You don't have to meditate anywhere. You can meditate whatever that means for you. Just do you. So it's in the spiritual community as much as it is in the community that's fast asleep.
Yeah, you're so right. I'm glad you've highlighted that, because that's something that I'm so passionate about, purely being with honesty, because I went into the spiritual side of deep into it, and I thought, like, if I meditate 1 hour longer, I'll find it. If I do the practice diligently, harder, I'll open my eyes and my perfect reality would be manifest. And then there was one day where it was just the most hilarious moment for myself, where I realized, like, you are it. But I guess it's perfectly designed in this blueprint for Ryan to have gone that way about things, right? And to discover, like, hold on, the very thing that I'm looking for is the very thing that's never been any distance from the truth of who I am. And you mentioned it as like being, right? You need to understand your beingness. And yeah, you're a human being, you're not a human doing. But we live in this Western society which is so overemphasized on doing, and eventually you will do so much that you'll realize that I can't take this anymore, because the more I do, the less fulfilled I am. And then you realize that there's some, like, glitch in the system. Like, why is it that when I have these experiences, be it people, places, things that the world says will bring me satisfaction, it might last a week in a new car, it might last a month, but then it's like the new model comes out. And then there's a part of you where the ego is like, well, now I need to get the new model because Gary's got the better car than me. So what do I need to do in order to create that success and that fulfillment? And then it's the new model and it's short-term gratification. So being, I mean, you embody being. How long have you been connected to Ramdas and his work and who he was as a being?
So I've been exploring Ram Dass for quite a few years now. I've only lately been getting deep into his work, due to the mere fact that I'm very, what's the correct terminology here? I've been very intrigued and interested in psychedelics more and more so in the last year. And as we know, Ram Dass is a I wouldn't say he's enlightened, maybe to a certain degree, but he is a spiritual master that has been able to learn from an enlightened being. And at the same time, he was a massive advocate of psychedelics, particularly psilocybin and LSD. Um, and at the same time, he did the world like everyone else does, and he was a Harvard professor as well. And he became this interesting creature of like a Hindu spiritual master that subscribed to all religions, being a Jewish middle class man. So he's just like such an
Mm.
interesting dude. And to be able to, I love different perspectives. And he's got a beautiful way of relaying questions that will allow you to ask a question about a circumstance or about a person, to be able to see the different perspective there is. Because just like I referred to in the beginning of the conversation, everything in life can be seen a different way. And it comes back to the way we are programming ourselves with language coming out of our mouths,
Mm.
but mostly in our minds. What is the language that we are using to program our life around us? Now, I'm no perfect being, because like I've been in a place, was it yesterday or day before? Day before, the language I was using, it was on another level in my mind, and it got me into a place of stress and overwhelm, because I was looking at a situation at a very one-dimensional way, and it frustrated me because I couldn't overcome it. But there's no overcoming in life, there's only allowing, because whatever's unfolding
Mm.
right now in front of you, or whatever has unfolded already. There's a coach by the name of Peter Crone that put together a saying that's so beautiful, that says, what happened happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way, because it didn't.
Yeah.
And to me, like the profoundness of that is on another level. So you say, like, that's the reason Ram Dass is one of my mentors right now, one of my teachers. I've got so many mentors and teachers, because he's a man that aspired to be this perfect, in inverted commas, culmination of a successful man, you know, being a professor in residence at Harvard, professor in residence at Stanford,
Mm.
you know, and it just didn't feel good, and he kept exploring the world. And he had a cue to go to India. And he recently passed away. But he led his whole life based on those cues. And this is what I want everyone to hear. And it's what I've learned to adopt my life towards as well. And it's in order to live my life according to cues. And those cues, another word for that is gut feeling. Another word for that is intuition. The word for that is
Mm.
just the feels within you. Because it's that really, it's some people call it your inner GPS. That feeling in the pits of your stomach is actually telling you which way to turn or which way not to turn.
Yeah.
And don't get mixed up thinking that one is right and one is wrong. It's just one direction is more in alignment for you, and one is not as aligned for you. For someone else, it could be the opposite. So don't allow it to be the tool of judgment.
Mm.
And that's why, my long answer of why I've gone into his work quite a bit.
Yeah, Ram Dass is, I'm with you. Like, and if anyone's hearing us talk about Ram Dass, like, go and do a bit of research, go and check him out if it's resonating, because there's so much profound wisdom and information for you to be with, and it literally can change your life
Mm.
in terms of what Ram Dass brought to humanity. I've got
Mm.
one of his books
You
of
know, you know,
Be
you
Here
know what I
Now
love
next
about
to
him?
me. Yeah,
It's
tell me.
phenomenal, right? But you know what I love about him, and I don't want people to overlook that, is that the way he can make something. And you can see me move here, but this is me. Like I don't like being stagnant. So if this is distracting for anyone watching this beautiful video, this is me. Welcome to my vortex. But the thing that I love about Ram Dass is He creates all these complex, seemingly complex things in life into very simple kind of one-liners or one paragraphs. And I
Mm.
think that is why we are suffering so much in this world, is because we have chosen to make everything so complex. And it reminds me of something I was saying. I got onto a phone call with an entrepreneur, a startup entrepreneur last night that I knew from my previous life. And he's just started a company 18 months ago. And he asked me a question. He's like, how did you get into in advisory roles for corporates and startups, right? Or as a business coach? And I said,
Mm.
because I was able to tap into the simple nature of not knowing the industry. He said, what do you mean? And I said, think about this. You're so wrapped in that box that I was talking about earlier. So you sit on boards, or you sit with other founders, co-founders, or you sit with other businessmen in your industry, or at least in an industry that's just one place removed from your industry. And you're getting all this input, and
Mm.
you're trying to figure out these certain problems, these certain challenges. And yet, most times, all those businesses need is a fresh and a new and a different perspective. And it can be in such a simple form that you probably overlooked it as a business person, as an entrepreneur, because it seemed so simple. Life's not out to trick us. Life's not out to confuse us. The answers, most of the times, I would say 9.5 times out of 10 is in the simple nature of living.
Mm. So well said. And you're right. We've lost that simplicity in so many aspects. And I guess that's what people are so desperate to come back to, is just a simple, more powerful and aligned way of living. Now, we hear that you went through, your challenges and what one could deem rock bottom, but it was your peak in terms of like coming into the new levels of self that Gary now embodies. What is it that you do these days? I know there's a couple of things. Tell people like what you do, what you're passionate about. You've traveled a lot of the world. What does your day kind of include?
I love creating, right? And in order
Mm.
to create, the sister or the brother, whichever one you want to call it, the sister or brother, the sibling of creation, is solving challenges, right? And I have, from the moment I was born, I have been in a mode of creation. And I
Mm.
have always been so intrigued and interested in solving problems and solving challenges. And I'm so grateful to be in the space where I'm able to be a coach and be able to co-create with individuals in order to create their vision, create their desires, create whatever they want, create an amazing relationship, create everything. And the reason I can do so many things is, yes, one, I have studied so much, and I have studied integrative health, and I've studied, uh, gone deep into relationships and tantra and yoga, and I've gone into trauma counseling, and I've gone into business coaching and advisory, and I've gone into all these aspects, and I can study and study, and we couldn't all do that. But here's the difference. I love incorporating everything in my life. I love being a student. I will never let go of that element of me of being a student, because I think in order to be, I believe, and I can't say I'm an enlightened master, so I don't know if this is the truth, but for me, what feels right is that true masters are always students, or at least people that are able to keep showing up are always students and always curious of what's going on in life. So I've always been curious.
Yeah.
So do I do one thing? Am I one-dimensional? Hell no. Right now I am in Cape Town. I live in Bali. My offices are in Dubai for now. Is that going to be permanent? Who knows? People say, well, when you have kids, things are going to change. Yes. And I'm probably not going to prescribe to the normal way of parenting either. My kids won't go to school. I'll probably homeschool them. I'll probably want to spend more time with them, but my mind might change, and I am totally okay with it. Right. So what I focus on a daily, my absolute focus is creation. And it's like, how can I create, and this is how I'll start, how can I create the best morning possible, right? When I get into that space, then it's easy for me to flow into the next thing. How can I create a symbiotic relationship, beautiful, romantic, divine relationship with my fiance? Ah, what a question. Because when we start asking that question, it's like, then how do I show up? If I ask myself that, then I'm showing up of, oh, it's Friday. I'm gonna go buy some flowers. Oh, it's Friday. I'm gonna take out on a
Yeah.
date. I'm gonna, how can I create um, magic for my clients? Well, I need to ask him where he is today. Where is he today? What is happening? What's come up? His world might have shifted
Mm.
overnight. I first need to be curious and need to understand that I don't know anything that's going on in life. But I am willing to create and I'm willing to ask questions. And I devote myself to
Mm-hmm.
curiosity. And I do this with training as well. Like, I did triathlons, Ironman, and comrades for so long. And I was pushing, and it didn't feel right. My body started getting weaker. So I started getting curious. What other types of movement can I do? Is there yoga? Is there primal movements? I don't want to be in that box. I want to keep creating.
Mm.
And here's the thing. We keep doing things over and over and over. We become stagnant. Stagnation breeds death. We keep putting ourselves on the edge and doing different things and showing up in different ways and being curious. That's life. That's living. That's creation. That's beauty.
Yeah. 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 That aliveness, like that you're speaking into right now, is it's critical. I mean, we could go on a podcast journey just on that, right? Like putting yourself on the edge, getting outside of the box. You're the second person in a couple of days, and on the previous podcast was a gentleman, Doc Marty, wonderful individual, but he was speaking about the exact same thing around remaining curious, and how when he stays open and willing to learn from life, and in his own words, he said on the podcast, like he realizes like how stupid he is. Now, I wouldn't call him stupid, but like he explained it that way because he's so open to learning again or learning anew or seeing from a fresh perspective. And I remember being told once,
Mm.
like, we know what we know. I know that I'm on this podcast with you. We know what we don't know. So I know that I don't know Gary's home address right now. And then there's the realm of we don't know what we don't yet know. And that's just
Mm.
like infinite. And it's what
Mm.
you're speaking into. How much more of that unknown are we willing to learn about and explore, pick up the things that resonate, put
Mm.
the things down that don't, and do it again, because that keeps that aliveness versus
Mm.
a powerful word, stagnation. That's a deep word.
Yeah. They say in yoga, right? They say a rigid mind breeds a rigid body, and the other way around. A rigid body breeds a
Mm,
rigid mind. It's why I very much prioritize movements, because if I can have a supple body, I know my mind will be more supple, and I know the other way around as well. And they say, like a stick, when you break a stick, it just snaps. And we just think ourselves as
yeah.
an elastic band that we can bend and we can move in every direction. I've been a very rigid person and stubborn person in my life, for sure. I've been so, like extremely so. I've adopted things. I am an Iron Man. I am in recovery from drugs and alcohol. Like that's my label. I am an entrepreneur. I am a
Mm,
COO. I am a CEO. I am I'm a long distance runner. Only a trail runner. I'm a vegan. I'm and all these I ams that's so rigid. And it's funny, it manifested in the rigidity in life, the energetics is around our hips. And what pulled me out of long distance running and Ironman? Like a tear in my labrum, which is in my hip.
mm,
And I wanted
mm.
to deal with that, So I was still rigid. Okay, I've got this hip injury and I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to go for surgical precision surgery on that spot, and a year later, the same injury happened. I'm like, and then I was like, okay, what's more to this? And
Yeah.
I still don't know, but someone did come across me and triggered me, and I'll speak about triggers now, and said to me, maybe you're just too rigid in life. And that infuriated me. I'm not rigid,
Yeah.
I was coming back as rigidity and all that. And then eventually I listened to
Yeah.
that, because I do know that our triggers is where we need to grow. And I think this whole element that I'm speaking of really got knotted into my system by hearing a quote by Krishnamurti, ancient Indian yogi sage, right? Someone asked him in an interview. He always looked in such joy, always, right? Someone asked him, "What's the secret? What's the secret to life?" And he started laughing. He's like, "That's a good question." He's like, "My secret to life is I don't mind what happens." Oh, just like listen to that again. There's the man that was the epitome of like joy in life said his secret to life was he does not mind what happens. That is the point of zero attachment.
Mm.
It's the point of commitment to being curious and being willing to change no matter what.
Mm.
And for me, that like literally sums up my life. So when people ask me like, well, what type of person you are, who are you? And I say, well, I'm a man that's dedicated to curiosity, to creation, to change, to love, to relationships. I love humans. I love being in the place where nothing is in between us, no phones, no nothing, just you and me, baby. Let's go deep. Let's find out things about each other. Like, let me be a student. That's me. Not I'm a coach. That's bullshit, man. I'm not a coach. Coach is a manifestation of my personality, of my desires. I'm not even a fiancé. No, I choose to be in this co-creative relationship with Claire. It's beautiful. It may change
That
tomorrow,
is
it may not.
extremely
But right
beautiful.
now, I'm just showing up.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
I must say, as someone
So
from
it's
the outside,
that's the element.
sorry if I interrupted you there. Just when you mentioned Claire, she's a part of your reality and a beautiful part of on that, and from the outside, I get to observe, and you guys have a phenomenal relationship, what we can see, and I see how much she means to you, and I see how powerful she is in herself, right, in her individuality. How did you meet Claire? Where did you meet her? And tell us a bit about what you guys create together in terms of her skill set and yours.
Yeah, of course. So it's a bit of a light, funny story. It wasn't light and funny at the time, but what happened was um, I had a podcast myself. It's still live. I'm no longer interviewing, so if people do want to listen to it, it's called Optimize Your Life. I think it's got about 100 episodes on. So maybe, who knows, maybe it'll be rebirthed and we can get you on it. But for now, what happened was I was interviewing people, and it was when I was a very rigid person at that moment where I was very, very vegan, and I was only interviewing vegan people. Anyway, we had a mutual friend. This mutual friend was a friend that I was kissing, kind of hooking up with. And
I love the way
that
you
friend
just
told me,
explained that.
I've got this friend that's a South African friend that's been living overseas. She's down for holiday, and she's like a really top, like very well-known vegan chef. Would you like to interview her? Of course. Cool. Come on over. She came on over with this friend, and things got very awkward very quickly because it was clear that there was like something going on, at least from my point of view. I was like, wow, who is this enigma of a woman that's just walked into my life, never mind my house? And she was there for a couple hours. I interviewed her, and then she, as a chef, I asked her to bring over some ingredients because I was like, come prove your worth, not jokingly. I was like, come cook us something. It'll be cool. And she just, not by chance, but this is the divine path that I'm talking about when you allow the space. I said, choose anything, make anything that you want, right? I was very strictly vegan then. And she had no idea. She didn't know who I was, right? She didn't know a thing about me. And she's an introvert. She's not like someone that would have checked online, and she decided to make a vegan malva pudding. Now, malva pudding for foreigners is a South African dessert, but I'd never had one being vegan, and it was my favorite dessert. So she made this thing, and I was like, I'm listening. Not to her, in my mind. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, straight
try
into
your
your
voice,
heart,
whatever you
right?
want to say.
Straight
Let's
into
go.
it. Yeah.
Straight. She got to my heart through my stomach. Like I always joke about it. So it's like that's
Mm,
exactly. And our
mm,
love language today is food still, Um, and
mm,
I invited her back, and we started seeing more of each other. And she was very hard to get, and I already realized then that she was a very strong character, and that's what I loved about her. But I saw the moment I saw she's not just a chef. She's this. I mean, she's a classically trained cordon bleu chef, right? She's a well-studied integrated nutrition and functional foods as well. But I saw an artist. The first thing I saw was like, wow, this is an artist. Beyond all the puppy dog kind of like, oh, I'm falling for this girl. I saw like this very special artist, the way she does food, and this is why she's so popular around
mm.
the world now. Um, and my startup mind and my creation mind I'm talking about was, ah, one, I'm gonna date this girl. Two,
Yeah.
like straight after that, I told my housemate because she said, if you start dating this girl, you're gonna cause shit with that mutual friend of ours, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously I was
Yeah.
kissing that mutual friend, and I was like transitioning, and I said, don't worry, I'll only date her if I know I'm gonna marry her. So I went
Mm,
straight in. I was like, I'm marrying this beautiful enigma that I don't actually know too much of about, and I'm going to co-create with her because her skills need to be seen all over the world. Um, so when my entrepreneurial mindset came in, and then yeah, eventually a month later, she kind of gave in. She kind of gave in to my like fourth attempt at kissing her, and I think maybe I persevered. I persevered. I wasn't letting this one go. And then yeah, from then on we started. That was a month in. We started dating. 3 months in, we packed up everything. Um, I was liquidating a business of mine at the time. She was fresh out of eating disorder rehab.
mm,
She suffered with
mm.
anorexia, and we packed up everything and vamos to Bali. We packed our bags, went to Bali, and we got to Bali, and we gave ourselves the space to figure out what we were going to be doing together, creating together in our life. Like I had a business, I was coaching then already, but I knew it was a new step, a new direction we're taking because I had this other person in my life now. I was like, cool, what are we going to do? We're both plant based, but more than vegan at the time, our love was like whole foods because I loved how it made our bodies come alive. Like we loved that. So Bali was so special, the fresh fruits and the fresh vegetables. And we got there, and um, we were just in a space of being in love with each other. And out of nowhere, I say out of nowhere, it was out of somewhere, and inverted commas, out of nowhere, we got someone. She was already doing restaurant consulting as a chef all around the world. Um, and then someone pitched for please come open our restaurant in Kuwait. This owner had 3 million followers on social media, and she wanted a cafe. And I was like,
Mm.
this is it. I was like, they wanted recipes from Claire. And I say, Claire, we ain't doing just recipes. Like, I've come from a consulting background. I was like, this is the moment where we create the brand. And I just went full in, and we created this whole, in that moment, I took like pretty much, I can't even remember the timeline, but it was about like maybe 2 weeks, and I just created this whole proposal. And I said, we're in business not just for recipes, we're in business to create a vision for you. You've got a vision of having this vegan croissants restaurant. Well, I've got a vision for you, and I would like to create a brand for you in Kuwait to be the biggest Whole
Love
Foods
that.
cafe that is serving people to the nth degree. We are going to train the waiters on nutrition because we both study nutrition, because I want the waiters to be educators. We're going to train the staff on the ingredients, the spirulina, the hemp, and all that. We're going to train the whole team. We're going to create something for you. We're not just going to put together restaurants. And we did that. And that was the first of many. We've now opened restaurants in all countries in the Middle East. We're the fastest growing and biggest restaurant consultancy, plant-based restaurant consultancy in the Middle East and Europe. And COVID allowed us to grow that into an online culinary course. And I'm very much behind the scenes here. I've helped create, and Claire is the face, and people love her, and she shows up every day, like as we don't even have anyone replying on her behalf, like an admin person. Like Claire will deal with every person one-on-one, and she gets hundreds of messages, like hundreds. And I keep saying to her, hey, we can get someone to like reply, start learning your personality, and she refuses. And that's a very good point, because that's the reason why I believe our brand has got such a presence, because we are so present in everything that we do. So we've got, I would say, like between our coaching and this restaurant consulting business and our relationship, we've just like co-created this beautiful business and life that's based on our value systems. We love eating healthy, fresh food. We're supplying it. We love speaking about nutrition. We train on it. I love people creating in business and consulting and coming up with new ideas. So I coach it. Like, we love living in the tropics and the island life and not wearing jeans and wearing shorts instead. So we live in Bali. It's like, that's how simple life is. You love that?
Yeah.
Go do it. You want that? Go do it.
Like, I can feel you now, and that's the best part, right? That tells us we're in the zone. And I guess someone listening in, let's be honest here, it's so easy for a person and where they're at to be like, this is another podcast between two men, Gary talking about his wonderful journey, like this woman, this enigma, and they're doing this dance together, and it's just all unfolding exactly how it's meant to. But that is exactly it. Like, it's available to every single being on this planet, right? And your journey is no better or worse than someone else when they're willing to create the space you've spoken about in the podcast already, when you're willing to be still and truly find that heart-led alignment. Like, life becomes magical beyond your mind's imagination, because the mind can be a limited tool in that sense. Like, you couldn't have imagined this up, right? Claire, how it's all happened. And I just want listeners to know that, like, the same beauty and magic is your life. You just have to really be willing to be bold in terms of what is in alignment for you, what's not, and how courageously can you be yourself. This isn't just Gary's story of magic. Like, the same magical story is your life unfolding in this moment.
Yeah. I want people to note this. I want everyone, all my family and friends and tribe members, anyone that's listening to this, like deep in, I'm speaking to you very particular, individually. Don't think about anyone else. Don't think of this as a podcast. Just think of this as me talking to you right now in your ears. And that is, don't prioritize the fluff of my story, the things that the particulars of my relationship or the particulars of my business. Try and feel the energy. Exactly what Ryan is saying right now. Try and feel the energy, because you may have to live a completely different life to tap into the energy that I'm in. But the energy that I'm in is possible for you. And your life may look very different. I know financial analysts, which is a job that I've done before. So I know it. I know financial analysts that are so tapped in and in the vortex and in the space of love and thriving in creation, sitting in office, being a financial analyst, solving problems. So there's no right thing or wrong thing.
Yeah.
But the only thing that you have to ask yourself is, what are you doing in your life that is essentially making you tired, what are you doing in life that is just not feeling lacquer or not feeling cool or just not feeling like it fits? You know, it's so easy for you to go try on a pair of Nikes and it's like, these don't fit too well. Can you bring me one size up? It's like, these don't
Mm.
fit. Let me, before I spend my bucks on these, let me just go try on and like the Adidas at the store next door, right? That's life. Try your shoes on. You know, if something doesn't feel cool, then like change. Because what happens if you get hit by a bus tomorrow? What happens if everything gets taken away from you tomorrow? Like, can you truly say that, wow, today I lived, today I
Mm.
experienced? And then people counter with that, well, I've got rent, I've got this, I've got that. I get it. I get it. I've also got rent. I've also got this. I've got like, I also have stresses. I don't have a salary every month. Like I need to create my income. I didn't say I earn my income. I need to create my income. How am I going to create
Mm.
clients? Like, like so everything's a creation, but if we keep focusing on the things that we lack, we get more of that.
Yeah.
Simple. If you think of blue cars, and everyone's going to think about this now, everyone listening, think of a blue car. Everyone think of a blue car. Blue car, blue car, blue car. Think of blue cars. Never forget that. Okay? I guarantee you in the next week, you're going to see so many blue cars. There aren't more blue cars on the road. P.S. There aren't. But because I'm telling you
Mm.
blue car, blue car, blue car, and you're like going with whatever I'm saying now, I guarantee you're going to spot the blue cars easier. It's whatever's in your focus, whatever's in your vision, whatever you're focusing on. The words that you use is the software to your hardware. The more we use that, the more of that we get back. So I can look at it like, I can say, man, my bank account is low, you know, I've got rent to pay, and I could say that in my head over and over and over and over. Or I can be like, boy, like how am I gonna create like such mega shifts in my
Mm.
life today? Like how am I gonna create an income stream to build my $5 million house? Oh, how am I gonna create that?
Mm.
It's a different question. It's a completely different question. So do you mind if I give people like a little bit of a task? It's something that I actually do with clients.
Please go for it.
Do
Like
you
this
mind if
is
I
your
just
space.
drop something in? I, I don't really like telling people to do anything, but I'm gonna recommend that this is something that's really helped me. It's something that has helped most of my clients, every one of them actually. It's actually most of my clients. I give in my contract this small print: beware, you may leave your job if you work with me. That's not my object. My object is for you to tap into who you are. Okay. And
Mm.
it's based on this. It's what my coach did this with me. And it's like, make a list of all the incompletes in your life and go fucking complete them.
Mm.
Okay. What are incompletes, Gary? Incompletes are these things. What are the conversations that you've been wanting to have, but you were too afraid to have? It could be with a family member. It could be with your boss. It could be anything. You were too afraid because you thought he might not like you, and he was going to fire you, or you were going to piss your mom off, or you're going to or whatever the case is. What are the conversations that you haven't had fully? Those things where you're sitting with people and they say something and you disagree with them, but you just hold back, right? These are the kind of incompletes. I don't mind how small they are, just get it done. Like it's a big weight on your shoulders. Go have all these conversations. Anyone listening, I
Mm.
know you already, conversations are popping in your mind already. Go have those. Pick up the phone and don't wait. Don't wait for tomorrow. Pick up the phone and phone now. Prioritize yourself. I don't care if the other person's busy. Phone them until they answer. Get hungry. Okay? And then the other thing is, what are the things that are in your life that you've been wanting to do, but you haven't done yet? And now this is a bit of an approach of, you have to ask yourself, why haven't you done it? Is it coming from a place of fear, or is it because you just don't want to do it? And essentially, you only gave yourself that task because that's what society tells you have to do. So if you're doing it because society tells you, then don't do it. Just drop it and take it off your task or your notes list on your iPhone or whatever the case is. But if it's something that you've just been lazy about and you just haven't showed up because you haven't had time, hate that excuse, haven't had time, create the time and go do it. Just go do it. Finish all your incompletes. That's how you create space. You remove all of those, all of a sudden your life has got so much space, you're not going to know what to do with it, energetically speaking. I know I'm not changing your job. I know I'm not saying go to your boss and say, I want to work 7 hours instead of 8 hours. But finishing a list of incompletes in your life is like taking your job, energetically speaking, it's like taking your job from 8 hours to 2 hours. That's what it does.
I really hope that people hear exactly what you've just shared, and there will be those who go out and tackle finding completion for themselves, and obviously there'll be those who don't, and that's also okay. But Gary, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing yourself. Thank you for allowing us to connect. In terms of how people can get in touch, with you, they've heard what you've shared. There will be people who have taken away so much value from what you've discussed today. How do you like being contacted? Because I think that's also a part of it, right? Like, what's the best way we want to create and receive that connection? And then how can people go about doing exactly that?
Easy one. You can find me wherever you find me. If people come across me anywhere, I am very particularly online. And you can reach out to me because I'm a human. I'm not a social media account. So you can come onto my Instagram, which is Gary_Tarola, my Twitter, which is the same, my Facebook, which is my name, Gary Tarola. You can come to my personal Facebook, you can come to my Facebook page, you can come to my TikTok. It's all my name. Just like search my name, Gary Tarola. Tarola, Gary is 1 R. Tarola, you spell TE space ROLLER. You can email me, hello@garytarola.com if you prefer email. The only thing I keep private is my WhatsApp, but you will get that if the conversation goes deeper. And this is what I've got to say. If something resonated with you, just go with it. Don't think of Gary has delivered this message and I need to follow this. Think of me as a mirror. Think of me as just a messenger. I'm right now, I had no idea what I was going to talk today on the podcast. I'm sitting here fully tapped in, tuned and turned on. And I'm just delivering something that's coming through me that is energetically there. Because I'm creating in the moment. Because I'm present. Right? So allow yourself to be present. Hear the messages that have come. And if the only thing that you resonate with or heard is prioritize yourself, then just go with it. Grab the bull by the horns and prioritize yourself today. And don't ever be intimidated by anything, by any gut feeling. If you want to reach out to me and I'll have a conversation with you. I'm not going to try and convince you to be a client. If you want to speak to me, I'll speak to you like a real human. I don't need you, listeners, as clients, because I get to create clients. I don't need Claire for the romantic relationship that I have because I create it. I don't need Ryan to have a friend, but I've got him because we've created it together. So, in my parting words, I hope everyone has a really blessed, loving, today's Friday, but whenever this launches, any day of the week. And my wish for you is go out there and create.